Well, it's just truly a delight to be here. I have the pleasure, I've heard Reverend Dr. Edward speak so many times. I've never heard him on the piano, though, which is really awesome. It's very, very cool. And I say to people, if you want to hear the speaker that I most am inspired by, go listen to Reverend Dr. Edward. Yeah, it's true. So I have a confession to make. I did get to the talk themes for the year and the month and what was happening today, and I was sort of excited to weave together the idea of the wisdom principles and a journal that I've written with Reverend Dr. Christian Sorensen, who is the minister in Encinitas, California, Seaside. Center for Spiritual Living. And I was supposed to bring them to sell them to you, and I wasn't able to bring them. So this is the cover of the book, and it's called the Joyous Living Journal, and I'd love for you to hop out on Amazon if you feel so moved. We have the Joyous Freedom Journal was our first one, Joyous Living Journal the second, and we're in publication for our third one called the Joyous Abundance Journal, which will be out at the end of the year. I'm very excited about it, and then I hope never to write another journal ever again. Holy moly, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of things in our lives that are a lot of work, isn't there? Oh, man. Starting with answering emails, right? And keeping up with all the things that we have to keep up with, and raising the kids and going grocery shopping and paying the bills and going to work and going to the center and taking classes and volunteering. And are you tired yet? Yeah. So are we living joyously? This is something I think about often in my own life. Thomas Troward, he's the mental scientist, one of the great inspirations for Dr. Ernest Holmes and our movement, and he designates a wonderful passage on the 7 qualities of God. Because we ask, what are the qualities of God? What are the spiritual principles? What are the qualities of God? This is not a definitive list, but it was his list. The qualities of God: love, life, light, peace, power, beauty, and joy. And in the description of these, he speaks about how if you begin with love, life is the necessary outcome, the necessary thing that follows, and then light, peace, power. Each one the necessary and logical outcome of the one before. And if you begin with love, you end with joy. Ernest Holmes says this: the universe exists for the delight of its creator, that it shall behold itself in its own works, know its beauty in that which is beautiful, and in us, I believe, behold its beloved, in whom it is well pleased. He was inspired by the writings of Sri Aurobindo, who understood and taught that creation is for the delight of God. How many of us feel delighted in our lives when we are feeling that overwhelmed, when we are pushing against a deadline, when we are engaged in simply trying to, sometimes it feels like, just make it to the finish line. Sometimes in life we become so focused on the finish line that we fail to find joy in the journey. This was brought home to me once again in a conversation that I had just actually in the last couple of weeks. We're in the process of redoing our website, and it's a big, huge, massive project and lots of things going on, and there are 4 of us that are basically working on the architecture and all the content and really thinking about what is going to be done, and so then somebody, can go off and do it. And we were a little behind schedule, and the 4 of us met, and we were having a conversation, and you could feel the stress level, and the room was rising, and there was a lot of tension, not at each other, but at are we going to get it done, and how much there's to do, and so we just went, wait, let's just stop. Let's just stop for a minute and breathe. Yeah, this is not how we want to be doing this at all. So let's check in. What's going on? How are you doing? How are you doing? How are you doing? And we do what we always do, and we remember to do it in our committee meetings. A little check-in. What's going on in your life? How are you feeling with this project? Just where are you? Yeah, and one of the young men who's really kind of spearheading the thing, and he was sharing his overwhelm and his uncertainty about how it was moving forward and his disappointment, and he said, and I just don't know where my joy is gone. Yeah. And I'm sorry to admit that I myself have often in my life found myself in those moments where I think, where is my joy gone? And it became the topic of our conversation. Where is our joy? When so often this is how we feel, right? We are barely hanging on. We are barely making it from one task to the next, from one set of emails to the next, and then we have to be on Facebook, and then we have to get on text, and now I have to learn about Instagram, and I'm like, okay, I don't really get it. The more technology we have that's supposed to connect us and keep us, make life luxuriously simple, ha, 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 right? Normal is getting dressed in clothes that you buy for work and driving through traffic in a car that you are still paying for. In order to get to the job, you need to pay for the clothes and the car and the house you leave vacant all day so that you can afford to live in it. Yes? Holy moly, isn't that just the truth? And sometimes I'm sorry to admit that even in being in this teaching for as long as I have, sometimes it still feels this way, doesn't it? When we get into that sense of move, go, do all the time. And for me, what happens is then I begin to feel like this. Get me down! Help! Somebody please fix it. Oh my gosh. Yeah, poor little guy. I just wish somebody would take pity on me. Yeah, but it doesn't work that way, does it? We usually have to take pity on ourselves. And we have to stop for a moment. I have to stop and ask myself, what is driving all of this? What is driving me to end up feeling like this? Well, you know, sometimes I'm driven to this place because, well, I want to be engaged, right? We want to show up in our commitment. We said yes. We have integrity. We want to do what we said we were going to do. We don't want to sit on the sidelines and watch the world go by. We want to participate, and we've made commitments, and we've decided to spiritually grow. So not only do we have to go to work, but we now have to meditate, and we have to take care of ourselves. So means we have to exercise, and we have to eat right. Right? And so we don't want to shirk or shrink or avoid our responsibilities and our participation in life. And we've learned how to say yes to life, haven't we? Our spirituality teaches us, say yes to life. The universe is always saying yes to us. And then we've said yes to so many things. Yeah, I hear the recognition in the room. And that becomes our normal, our new normal to live in this place. So I have this a similar plaque in my kitchen. It says, pretending to be a normal person day after day, it is exhausting. Stop doing it. Stop it. And it's not just the normal of fitting in. Although certainly for long periods of my life, that was part of the normal. Did I look like everybody else? Did I behave like everybody else? Did I make as much money as everybody else? Did I fit in like everybody else? And Now my normal has moved into, am I committed enough? Am I in integrity enough? Am I taking care of myself enough? Am I eating right enough? Am I organic enough? Am I taking, carrying enough recycled bags enough? Right? And now there's a new normal, and I'm exhausted. I was reading an article the other day, and oh my gosh, I was so busted. I just hated it. I was so busted. It was talking about our new sense of, quite frankly, it was talking about how you affirm your status in the world. And you affirm that when somebody says, "How are you? How's it going?" And you answer, "I'm so busy." That's the new status symbol. Because if I'm that busy, I'm that committed. I'm that participatory. I'm somebody important. I have things to do, places to go, people to see, emails to answer, texts to write, pictures to put on Facebook. I am living my life. It is the new status symbol in our corporate culture. How are you doing? I'm so overwhelmed. I have all these projects. Why? Because I'm important. Yes? So busted. I'm never saying that ever again. Ernest Holmes says this: the kingdom of God is at hand. The riches, power, glory, and might of this kingdom are yours today. You do not rob others by entering into the fullness of your kingdom of joy, your kingdom of abundance. You merely claim for yourself what you want for the divine spirit of everyone else. And we know this, and we express this, and we seek to claim our good, and we seek to let others experience that good as well. We know that we're not robbing it of anybody else, but sometimes I wonder if we're robbing it from ourselves, because we're so busy being about the abundant life that we can have and the abundant experience that we can have. We can become so busy with all of our yeses. And we stop finding that place of joy. We stop moving from that place of inner direction. And we simply do because it's there to do. So we asked ourselves in that meeting, what does joy look like? What does joy look like to us? As we were talking, and our conversation moved from overwhelm to this statement, I've lost my joy. Well, what does it look like? It's interesting to think about. In the Bible, joy is used in the Christian scripture. It's used 150 to 200 times, depending on which translation you read. And it's very interesting that it's twice as often in the Hebrew portion of the Bible as it is in the Christian portion. That makes sense, somebody says. Understanding how beautifully originally blessed life is. And so we got to talking about it, and we talk, when we feel joy is when we have some sense of spontaneity and little windows of opening. And we began to talk about, of course, how often we experience when we have the eyes of a child, we have the wonder of a child, we have that moment of freedom to express outside of the confines of the doingness that we are engaged in. Ernest Holmes says this: whatever your years, there is in every being's heart the love of wonder, the undaunted challenge of events, the unfailing childlike appetite for what is next, for the joy and the game of life. You are as young as your faith and as old as your fear, as young as your hopes and as old as your despair. So let's make room for surprises. Let's make room for those I can't wait for. Remember that? I can't wait for Christmas. I can't wait for school to end. I can't wait to go have a sleepover with my friend. I can't wait for. Not those, oh, we're living in the future thing, right? When I have that, then I'll be happy. Not that kind of future. But the I can't wait for, that thing that delights us, that moves us out of the confines of the rat race, that hamster wheel that we can find ourselves in. And we really stopped and asked, well, do I have an I can't wait for coming up? I have an I can't wait for. I'm going to go on vacation. I'm going to go for the month of July with some friends to Europe. And I'm really, really looking forward to it. And how wonderful that is. We have that experience of joy and delight when we go on vacation. But we can't be gone for a month every month, can we? Can't always be on vacation. So what is that I can't wait for that you have this week? That date night, that thing that breaks you out of the routine, something that opens the window of possibility and surprise. But I don't believe that that's enough. I don't believe it's enough for us to just recapture or find those moments where we have childlike wonder. As I said, we can't always be on vacation. We do actually have our lives to live. We have the ordinary daily moments of our lives, of having coffee in the morning and sitting with our coworkers and raising our children. And we have the ordinary things that we do every day. And we want to find joy in that, not only somehow separate from our life. In the Hermetic teachings, this is where we get this notion, as above, so below. This comes originally from the ancient Hermetic teachings. And of course, it's deeply embedded in our own teaching. Another way that we say this is, as within, so without. As the within and the above, these are states of consciousness as we understand, and then it outpictures in our life, in our world. I'm going to be talking a lot about our states of consciousness in the workshop this afternoon when we talk about the four kingdoms of consciousness. And so as we think about this, as above, so below, as within, so without, we have an opportunity to really reorient ourselves to the truth of our being, to the joy that is actually always and forever present. For this, I use the image of the Celtic cross. It is the Celtic cross with the equilateral arms. And it represents this way in which we might think about how we stand in equality of God. So the vertical line in the cross represents the absolute quality of divine reality, the absolute quality. It has no opposite. It is simply the presence of, as Troward listed, love, life, light, peace, power, beauty, and joy. This is the relative quality of the human experience, the horizontal line. And on one side, we have the complete absence of that quality, and on the other side, we have its complete presence. So in our experience, we have the absence or presence of this quality, which is actually always there, at the center of our being, at the center of life, at the heart of the divine. And so if we look at the quality of joy as the unmitigated delight of God, you see, it is the reality. It has no opposite. It is simply either expressed or not. It is simply either experienced or not. It is simply either absent or present. Right? Ernest Holmes reminds us it is the sense of separation that is all that we are healing. It is our sense of separation from joy that causes it to be absent. Not that joy can go anywhere, but we can separate ourselves from it, basically not be open to it, or place our joy on that which is outside of us. And so when we do that, we can move through the experiences of the absence of joy. And so the absence of joy might start with sorrow. It moves through depression, and at the outer edge, we might call it despair. Not because these are experiences or feelings in and of themselves, but this is what we call when joy becomes less and less and less present in our lives. On the other hand, joy can be more and more present. We can begin with happiness. Uh-oh, my little clicker is not bringing up there we go, sorry. We can bring happiness, we might call it joy, ecstasy, and all the way out here we have bliss. Rick Warren wrote this: "My problem was my definition of joy. I thought joy meant feeling good all the time, but that's impossible." Do you see, when we are counting our joy on the things out here, we're on the vertical axis. When we are living from the center point of who we are living from the truth of our being. So now let's think about what joy looks like. It is the moment of deep quiet on your meditation cushion or in silent communion with the divine. The experience of peace by the shore or in the woods. The spontaneous magic of a travel adventure. But joy is more than that. It is the sweaty feeling of accomplishment when you've climbed the mountain, completed the hike, rowed the boat, and find yourself at the end, spent but full. The feeling of accomplishment when you've given something your all and done the very best you could. It is the sense of connection when you've reached out and supported, comforted, or helped someone. It is the creativity you expressed in making something new happen at work, in your art, or at home. Each one of these comes from our internal state of being. Do you see? It comes from that place where those two, the vertical and the horizontal axis, meet right at that center point. We are the fulcrum at that center point, and we are forever inviting ourselves. Are we living from here or from here? Holmes says there is a creative urge back of everything you do, an urge to express life, joy, and happiness. To reach out to everything that lives as though you belong in the universe in which you live. To be one with it and have an enthusiastic zest for living. Our nature is such that it is necessary for us to express life, to come into the fulfillment of joy and happiness. Even in those moments that don't feel joyful from the outside. Do you see? Joy is the truth of our being, and when we know the truth of who we are, and we know the truth of the divine, and we know that we live and move and have our being as the very reality of life itself, being us, that becomes the center from which we move. And then we stop focusing so much on how joy is absent, and we begin seeing how joy is present. Marianne Williamson says this: joy is what happens to us when we allow ourselves to recognize how good things really are. Let us pray. So I just invite you to go within with me, taking a moment to remember that there is this one infinite power and presence, this one love, this one life that is delighted in creation, delighted to be you and me and all beings everywhere, delighted to be life itself expressing in everything that we see. And this morning, as we recognize this truth, let us take a moment to recognize where in our lives life is already going well. Where in our lives the presence of the divine is showing up where in our lives we are supported and lifted, where love is present, where peace is making itself known, the connections that we do have. How grateful I am to know that in the midst of no matter what, there is good, there is God, and therefore there is joy. It is on this joy I stand. It is from this joy that I move. It is from this place that I proclaim for each and every one of us that this is the truth of our being. And it is from here that we move in the world. Grateful to know that this is so. We simply let it be, and so it is.